Okay, I've just started the recording, and there you go. Okay, can someone confirm if it is visible? Okay, thank you for the confirmation. Okay, so let us get it started. So far, like yesterday, we have discussed about the static context. Actually, we have discussed this topic already, but yesterday I was giving you some insights to understand the execution of static context with respect to Java inheritance, right? So we have again revised static blocks, static methods, and static variables. Only one line answer. If you remember this, then you can understand the control flow. What is it? Static blocks and static variables are recognized and executed at the time of loading the dot class file to the JVM. Right? You should understand it from the compilation as well as from the execution point of view. Okay. So then you will understand this very easily. This can be recognized very easily. However, for the static methods, they are executed only when you start calling that respective method. Okay, so this is like very easy. I don't think we require to revise it once again. Okay, today the topic is instance context with respect to inheritance. Right? Again, this instance context in Java is categorized into what? Instance blocks, instance method, and instance variables. Okay, the definition, like you can understand this very easily. Today I'm going to give you some tips, and I'm going to reveal you some secrets which I have which I have taken it while doing research and development. Okay, so what does it instance blocks and methods? What does it says? It will be, I can say that instance blocks and instance methods. I mean instance blocks and instance variables. Okay, let me copy these two. Okay, instance blocks and instance variables, they are recognized and executed just before executing the respective class constructor. First point to be noted. Okay, just before, there every time in every class there will be a default constructor or there will be user defined constructor. Okay, just before executing that constructor, these blocks will be prioritized first. These blocks and variables will be recognized and executed, then the constructor will be executed. How this will happen, you will see that with respect to the Java inheritance. Secondly, these blocks and variables, okay, I can say that these blocks and variables are executed every time the constructor is called. This point is very important. Every time the constructor or the respective class constructor is called. Respective class constructor gets called. Okay, theoretically you may be facing a little kind of confusion. I will give the justification practically. Okay, now let's go to instance method. Instance methods are just like static methods. Okay, they are executed just by calling the respective methods, right? So this is the theory. This is how the theory looks like. Practically we will understand. We are going to understand something practically. For this to understand this, if I want to give justification for this line, let me take a class. Okay, I'm taking a simple test class. Okay, let me also keep this command prompt open for the execution. Okay, I hope the command prompt is visible. Let me change the directory cd space Java. Okay, this command prompt is also set. It is all set. Okay, now focus here, guys. I'm going to take one. Let me take one instance variable. Okay, when I say instance variable, don't you think that any variable that is within the class scope, outside the method but inside the class, if you define any variable, that is going to be what? Instance variables. Yes or no? For example, if I am declaring the variable, if I am just performing the declaration, integer a, integer. Okay, let me take it as only integer a. Okay, now you see, guys, what is really happening behind the scenes. Okay, when I do this, Okay, I just want to okay, let us take that integer a equal to 10. I want to print the value of a. I want to print what? I want to print the value of a. Okay, can you guess me the output? Can you tell? Anyone can you tell me the output? If I perform compilation execution, what output can I expect in the console? Can you answer it in the chat box? Okay, I have declared a variable a and I want to print that variable. Okay, what is the output now? Come on, everyone. Okay, good. Everyone answer. Yes, correct. Good. See guys, see here. Okay, I have just performed, I just saved this code. Okay, I'm giving the compilation. Java C space test.java. Right? See, what is the error? It says non-static variable cannot be referenced from a static context. Okay, so you should understand this. So whenever you are trying to call a variable, okay, you are trying to call a variable, but the variable is of what type? It is of instance variable. Okay, you are trying to call an instance variable. Definitely object creation is mandatory. Yes or no? Object creation is mandatory. Why object creation is mandatory? We will understand it now. Okay, let us try to analyze this. Let us try to do some tracing. Okay, and see why the compiler is throwing this error. Why the compiler is actually throwing this error? Let us try to find that first. Then we will understand about the instance variables. Right? So let us go to the paint screen. Focus here, guys. You won't get these things in the Java books. Okay, focus here. Okay, this is our code. Okay, this is our code. Very simple code. Okay, I want to perform what? I want to perform the compilation. Okay, so the code has been saved as what? Test.java. Okay, to perform the compilation, we need a compiler. Okay, before even thinking about the compiler, okay, we need to do what? We need to give a command in the command. What is the typical command? Java C space test.java. Right, so the moment you give this command, definitely this file will be loaded to the compiler. Yes or no? This file will be loaded to the compiler just because of this command, right? And it will start performing the compilation. Okay, let us just assume that it has performed the compilation. So we are getting compile time error. We are getting what? Compile time error. Why we are getting compile time error? I will tell you now. Let us assume that compilation is successful. Let us assume, we are just assuming, okay, compilation will not be successful. I will tell you why it will not be successful, but we are trying to assume that the compilation is getting successful. Okay, now the JVM will come into the picture. Okay, JVM has to do what? JVM to activate the JVM, we need to do what? We need to give a command Java space test. Okay, the moment you give this command, of course, if the compilation is successful, we are just trying to assume that the compilation is successful. Okay, if it is successful, test.class file will be generated. Yes or no? This .class file will be generated, and we are supposed to, this .class file needs to be loaded inside the JVM. Okay, this .class file has to get loaded inside the JVM. Yes or no? It has to get loaded inside the JVM. Okay, now what will happen? As soon as it is loaded, a main thread will be created. One thing. Okay, at the time of loading, if there is any static context, it will be recognized and executed. There is no static context here. Okay, now main thread will be created. Okay, main thread will be created. Main thread will get access to what? Main thread will get access to the main method. So this is the main thread. Okay, main thread will get access to the main method. Okay, what is the first instruction? So it is trying to print a. Okay, now see guys, this main thread will look if there is any variable a not in the class. If there is any variable a inside the JVM, is there any variable, any storage, any variable a that is specified inside the JVM? Any memory has got allocated for the variable a? There is no such memory allocation in the variable a. That is the reason why, okay, the compiler is already giving us an error. Okay, only when you create the object, that object is going to allocate memory for all the instance variables. Only when you create the object. without creating an object. Okay, the main thread, the job of the main thread is to do what? It will try to identify, is there any variable inside the JVM, inside the heap area, inside the heap area, inside the JVM. Okay, heap area is not even created, or there is no object so far. Okay, this variable will be identified in an object, guys. Please try to understand. Okay, if it will try to identify if there is any object, and if that object is holding any variable name as a, no, there is no object created. That's why the compiler is guessing all this before, and we are getting error during the compilation time itself. Okay, ideally when you, that's why it says whenever you want to call a variable, if that is an instance variable, definitely object creation is mandatory. Object creation is mandatory, right? Since there is no object created, you cannot call an instance variable inside a static from a static method, right? That is the reason why the error is something like a meaningful error. It says non-static variables cannot be referenced from a static context. This is case 1. You will understand, we will understand this much better. Okay, this is the case 1. Now let me try to do this. Okay, let me try to repeat this by creating an object. What is happening? Right now, what I am doing now, see, I am trying to create an object. Test obj equal to new test. Okay, by using this reference, by using this obj reference, I want to call here. Now see the results. Now see how clever the compiler is. If I try to compile this now, okay, now see Java C space test.java. Okay, Java space, I'm sorry, Java space test. We are getting 10. We are getting 10 now. See how clever the compiler is. After the, by creating an object, we are able to access this. Why we are able to access this after creating an object, that we will understand now. Okay, this is part 1. Okay, this is take it as what, the case 1, where we got an error because we are calling an instance variable without creating an object. Okay, now see the case 2, how beautiful it is. Case 2, right? So the case 2 is the same program. I have just created an object, nothing else I have done. I have just created an object. Okay, same thing goes. What we have to do? What we have to do, this file, this code needs to be saved as test.java, right? And there, you need to do the compilation, right? For the compilation, compiler is required, yes or no? So here we have the compiler, right? So to activate the compiler, okay, to activate the compiler, to start activating the compiler, if the compiler needs to gets activated, what is the typical command that we need to give? What is the typical command? Java space test.java. Java C space test.java. Right? Same thing I have given here. I am repeating this over and over again so that you people will not forget. Okay, Java C space test.java. Compiler is activated. Once it is activated, it is going to perform the compilation on which file? Test.java file. Why test.java file? That is the file that we want to compile. Right? As soon as the successful compilation, this compiler is going to generate how many dot class files? Only one dot class files, because we are dealing with only one class, right? Test.class file. Test.class file will be generated. Then JVM will come into the picture. Okay, this is what? Java virtual machine. Okay, to activate the JVM, what is the typical command that we have? A Java space test. Right? The moment you give this command, what will happen internally? The moment you give this command, the JVM will be activated. Yes or no? Right? JVM is going to get activated. Right? As soon as JVM is activated, and this particular test.class file will be loaded inside the JVM. Okay, at the time of loading, please remember one thing. At the time of loading, when it is being loaded, it will check if there is any static context. Okay, it will check for static context. Of course, there is no static context. Always remember, it will check for static context. If there is any static context, that will be recognized and executed, and the values will be stored in an area called method area. There will be an area called method area. If there is any static variables, that those values will be stored inside this area. It's a kind of memory area which is called as what? The method area. What is it? MT, I'm saying. MA, I'm saying method area. Okay. Secondly, main thread will be created, right? Focus here. Main thread will be created, right? This is the main thread, right? This main thread will get access to, or it will execute all the instructions inside the main method. Okay, now you see guys, what is the first instruction? First instruction is an object creation, test obj equal to new test. Okay, now what happens? There will be a area inside the JVM. The name of the area is called as what? The heap area. What is it? There will be an area inside the JVM. This area is called as what? Heap area. Let me maximize this. Okay, let me maximize this. Okay, and this is typically called as what? The heap area. Okay, inside this heap area, inside this heap area, what it is going to do? It is going to create an object for what? Test obj equal to test. Okay, because of this new keyword, an object will be created. An object will be created, and this object will be addressed as what? Obj. And this object is responsible to allocate all the memory for the instance variables. How many instance variables that we have in the test class? In the current class. Okay, we are dealing with object. This obj is of what type? This obj is of test class type, right? Obj is of what type? Test class type. Okay, now it will look inside this test class file. Okay, the JVM will look inside the test class file to identify if there are any instance variables. Then only one instance variable is there. Okay, int a equal to 10. Memory gets allocated for this instance variable. What is it? A equal to 10. As soon as memory is allocated, now what we are trying to do, right? We are trying to next. What is the next instruction? This instruction has been completed. Okay, next instruction is we are using obj.a. We are calling something on top of obj. Obj.a. You want to access something on top of obj. Okay. What is obj? Where is obj first of all? Now obj is completely recognizable. Here we have obj, right? Sorry. We have obj here. Okay. By using obj, we are calling a variable a. So we have value 10. Okay. 10 is been assigned to the variable a. That's why the output is 10. Now the JVM is completely clear that the value obj.a is completely recognizable. That's why the output is 10. This is the reason why instance variables are recognized only after creating an object. Are you getting this or not? Why we got error before? Why we are not getting error now? Why object creation is mandatory? Are you getting this or no? Are you able to get this now or not? Everyone who said 10 in the beginning. Is it making any sense to Yes or no? Before we are not able to get. Why before we are not able to? We were able to get an error before because it was not able to identify the value inside A in the memory. Okay, it is not yet defined in the memory. Inside the memory, there is no such thing. Okay, this JVM will look only inside the memory to see if there are any values assigned for the respective variable. But the variable A is not at all defined. Not at all unable to find. This thread is not able to discover the variable A here. Right? When it is able to identify only after the object creation. So this code only after the object creation, these many things are happening behind the scenes. Then this thread, this main thread is able to recognize what is it? Obj.a. Yes, it is there. There is an obj. Okay, it can, by using obj, there is an a. Okay, the 10 value is assigned to this a. That's why the output is 10. Okay, keep this in mind. This is case 2. Okay. This is case 1. I have already said this is case 1. Okay, this is case 2. I'm sorry. It happens. Case 2. Case 2. Now our question is instance. What is our question actually? What we are trying to study? Instance blocks and instance variables are recognized and executed just before executing the respective class constructor. Okay, let me modify this program. Okay, let me remove this. Okay, I have integer a. I'm taking an instance block here. any block. Okay, if you have a block without any definition, without any name, an empty block. Okay, this empty block is called as what? The instance block. Okay, now let me remove this. There is no instance block. An empty block is called as instance block. You can keep any instructions here. System.out.println. Okay, now I'm saying instance test. Okay, let me remove all this. Okay, let me I think I should okay, let me remove this as well. Okay, now I am doing what? I am extending this test class. This test class is extending to class A. I am taking another class A. Okay, inside the class I am going to keep another instance block. At this time instance A. Very simple, guys. I have two classes. I have just defined two classes, right? One is class A and second one is class test, right? And inside the class test I have placed one instance block, and I want to print something. When this block is getting executed, I want to print something like instance test. Inside class A I have placed an instance block, and this when you are executing this particular class, okay, when this instance block is getting executed, this needs to display in the console so that we can understand which block is getting executed. Okay, I am taking a constructor here. Okay, now let me copy this. I want to print something. When this constructor is called, I want to print something like acon. Okay, I am taking another constructor here. List. Okay, so I want to print something when this constructor is called. Okay, this is what? Beacon. Very simple, right? Okay, now see some wonder will happen now. Very simple. Code is making more sense now. Okay, let me minimize this code, and now you are able to see it properly, I guess. I have class A, I have class test. Okay, and inside class A I have placed one instance block and a constructor, and inside class test I have placed one another instance block and what is it, another constructor, right? And I'm just creating an object. Okay, for test class. Okay? Test class. Okay, let us try to execute this. If I run this code, okay, there will be an output. Okay, from the output we will able to identify the control flow. Okay, look at the output. Instance A we got, acon we got, instance test we got, beacon we got. Okay, let us see what is happening inside. Okay, let us do the tracing part. Okay, before even starting the tracing part, go and try to read these ones. Instance blocks and variables. Okay, we are discussing about blocks now. What does it say is they are recognized and executed just before executing the respective class constructor. Before even touching the constructor, okay, before even executing the constructor, first execute the instance block, then execute the constructor. Definition is making sense. It is very clear. Okay, let us try to do the tracing now. Okay, so I will take this space to to do the tracing. Okay, let me copy this. Okay, and we will utilize this space for the tracing part. Okay, perfect. Okay, as usual, you might be feeling very boring. Okay, we need to do this and we need to imagine some things. This is mandatory for you guys. Every time you need to do this. Okay, so this has been saved as test.java. Okay, let me keep the file name here, test.java. Right, now we need to do the compilation, right? So while performing the compilation, compiler is going to do some manipulations. We know what are the manipulations are. Okay, with respect to constructor, compiler with respect to class, it is going to extend any class that is not extending to any other class to object class. First thing, right? And Secondly, do you remember in the constructor concept we have discussed something? Okay, in every constructor, the first line should be what it is going to place the super keyword. Every constructor, go and revisit the constructor topic, you will get this. Every line inside the constructor, first line should always be super. This will be taken care by the compiler. Okay, the things that are marked in red are the compiler things. Try to understand that. Right now, second thing, see, now after doing all this, okay, the compiler will start like, okay, this all things will be done. Okay, this all things will be done, okay, just before performing the compilation. The moment you give this command java c space test.java, okay, the moment you give this command, okay, this test.java file will be loaded to the compiler. Okay, compiler is going to do all these things, this thing, this thing, and this thing with respect to classes and with respect to constructors. Then it will start performing the compilation. Okay, try to recognize this. Okay, compiler. Okay, so as soon as the compilation is successful, okay, what it is going to generate? It is going to generate two dot class files. Yes or no? One is test.class file. Okay, second one is what? And we have a.class file. Right now, focus. These two dot class files are generated by the compiler, which means compilation is successful. Okay, now JVM is going to come into the picture. Right, this is the JVM. If to activate JVM, there is a typical command. What is it? Java space test. Okay, so the moment you give this command, now you see there is a lot of dependency. It has to load what? It has to load test.class file, has to be loaded. Okay, but this class test is extending to a class. Okay, before loading test.class file, it has to load a.class file. Okay, it will try to load a.class file, but a.class file is dependent upon object class. Okay, before loading a.class file, it has to load what? It has to load object.class file. I have already said in the extra days class, there are lot of dot class files in the Java library. Okay, this is the Java library, JL. Okay, one of the dot class file is what? Object.class. Object.class. Okay, object.class file will be loaded first because this has to be loaded. Okay, and at the time of loading, if there is any static context, it will be recognized and executed. Of course, there will be no static context in the object.class. Okay, then a.class file has to be loaded. At the time of loading, if there is any static context, it has to be recognized and executed. However, no static context in the class here. Right, then the test.class file will be loaded. This is the hierarchy. Then the test.class file is loaded. So far, we are able to load, JVM is able to load 3 dot class files at a time by this order. First is object.class, second one is a.class file, third one is test.class. So we are it is supposed to load test.class file, but test.class file is extending a. That's why it is it tried to load a.class file, but a.class file is again extending object. That's why object will be loaded first, a will be second, and test will be third. Inheritance, because if you are trying to, when you are using is-arelationship, it means parent class and the grandparent class should be given the highest priority. That's why parent classes will be loaded, then the last preference will be given to the child class. Okay, so far good, all the classes files are loaded. Right now, after loading, doing all this, okay, main thread will come into the picture. Main thread will be created. Now focus here. Your focus should be here from now. Okay, main thread will try to get it will execute all the instructions inside the main method. How many instructions we have inside the main method? Only one instruction. Okay, now what is the instruction that we have here? What is that one instruction that we have here? Okay, so we have test obj equal to new test. Okay, object needs to be created. Okay, object needs to be created. So till here, okay, why it is coming? Okay, till here. Okay, so there will be an area created, heap area. Okay, let me maximize this. Okay, let me maximize this. Okay, so this area is called as what? Heap area. This area is used to create objects. Okay, this area is called as what? Heap area. Okay, now what will happen? Because of the new keyword, an object will be created, and this object will have the reference of what? Obj. Yes or no? Obj. This is obj. Okay, now see, now next thing is we are calling, test constructor needs to be called. Okay, just try to understand this. Just because of this has happened. Okay, next thing is this test class constructor needs to be called. Okay, now the control will jump to what? The control will jump to test class constructor. This is this test class constructor. Focus here, step by step. Again, the first instruction in the test class constructor is what? Super. Means by using this extra, super means super class constructor, parent class constructor. Okay, indirectly, the first instruction in the test class constructor is what? The parent class constructor needs to be called. We have discussed these things already many times. Okay, I am repeating it once again for you. Okay, super means parent class. What is a parent class? A. Okay, so A constructor will be called. Again, the first instruction in the A class is what? Super class, which means parent class. So object class constructor will be called. Of course, nothing will be there in the object class constructor. Nothing will be there in the object class constructor. Okay, now the return call. Now the return call, it will come back here. Okay. Before even executing the instructions in the constructor, it will try to find is there any instance block or not. This will try to find is there any instance block or not. Of course, there is one instance block. Okay, this will be recognized and executed. So the output is going to be what? Instance A. First, this instance block will be recognized and executed. Then the respective constructor will be executed full-fledgedly. After executing this, the respective constructor. What is the respective constructor? This block will be executed completely. What is the block says? What is the instruction that we have in this particular block? Only one instruction, which is acon. That's why instance A acon. Return call. Okay, again return call. After executing this, it has to go back to the place it was previously sent. From here it was sent here, so it has to come back here. Okay. Before even executing the constructor, it will find is there any instance block inside the test class. Of course, there is one instance block, right? This will be recognized and executed. Output is what? Instance B. Then the respective constructor will be executed. Okay, this is the respective constructor. Then the priority will be given to the instructions of the constructor. Okay, bcon has to be printed. Okay, then it has to go back to the place it was previously. It was previously, this was the place, right? Then this part has been done completely. Okay, see what is happening. Just this line is doing so many things. Are you able to get this? Test obj new test is doing so many things internally. Object creation is happening, instance blocks are recognized and executed, then the respective constructor is getting executed. That's why the output is instance A acon, instance B bcon. Aren't we getting the same output? Instance A acon, instance test bcon. Instance test. Why test means? I'm sorry. Okay, here the statement is instance test. Okay, it's obvious that it should be instance test. Okay, right? Are you able to get this? Everyone? Are you able to find it useful? Are you able to get this? Why? What are the things that are happening behind the scenes? Right? Every time I will give you one tip. Okay? Every time when the two things you should remember. Okay? At the time of loading the .class files. Okay? At the time of loading the .class files, the static context will be recognized and executed. Okay? So the details, the data for the static variables and the static blocks, especially for the static variables, there is an area called method area. Remember this. Static variables are always stored in an area called method area. Okay, this is called method area. Since we do not have any static variables, okay, nothing, we don't need to worry about anything. Okay, there is a method area, not methods area, it's method area, right? and instance variables are always stored in the heap area. Remember these two things, heap area, the method area. Okay, since we are discussing about the instance variables always gets recognized after the once the main thread is created. Remember this. Once the main thread is created, instance variables are recognized and executed. Okay. Static variables are recognized and executed at the time of loading the bytecode. Are able to differentiate? Let me write it down here. Instance variables are recognized and executed once the main thread is created, because after creating the main thread then we do the object creation, right? Object creation, or else I can say that once the object is created, because both are same, once the object is created. But static variables are recognized and executed at the time of loading the bytecode. Static variables are recognized and executed at the time of loading the bytecode. Bytecode means dot class file. Both are same. The JVM. Okay, so this many things are happening behind the scenes. Now it's time for you to answer some questions. Okay, now I am doing a small change here. Okay, instead of like okay, now you see this test obj1 equal to new test. Okay, so this is, let me take it as obj1, let me take it as obj2. Can you guess the output, guys? Anyone, any person who has guts to answer this question? What do you think? What could be the output? Do you think? What could be the output? So when you create object once, we see 4 things in the console. When you create object 2 times, don't you see again don't you see the same thing is going to get repeated again? Yes or no? What is your answer? Good Chaitanya. Good presence of mind. Good. What about others? Do you agree with Chaitanya? When I say when one time object is created, right? So these many things are happening behind the scenes, right? And you are seeing this information being printed in the console. Don't you think that when you create object for the 2 times, don't you think that this heap area is going to allocate memory for the object to allocate something for the object to and this gets printed once again? Yes or no? But it will not happen for the static variables and blocks, because dot class file will be loaded only once, but object can be created many times. Okay, are able to get this? Okay, if you let me run this code. Okay, before running this I need to save this. See, 2 times. Okay, you should remember one thing, object can be created many times, but dot class files will be loaded only once. That's why in the static blocks they are executed only once at the time of loading the byte, but object can be created many number of times. If you create object for the 3rd time, right, test obj3 equal to new test, it is a repetition, right? It is a repetition. Each and every object is going to have its own set of data. Again, it is going to get repeated. Do you agree with me? People who are getting any kind of confusion, just try to execute this code, okay, and try to do some manipulations from your side. You will definitely get this. The way I have explained you also do the same thing. Definitely you are going to get this. Making sense? Appreciate Chaitanya. What about others? No answers from Samita, Darshini. Are you getting this? Are you people getting this? Are able to follow? Right, let us see another example. Okay, this is also, you do not have to think much, worry much. Okay, so without even thinking about this, you can answer. Without even doing this kind of tracing, you can answer. Okay, just try to keep one thing in mind. You're calling one class constructor. Okay, so before calling this constructor, if there is any static block, that gets executed. Okay, if there is a relationship, first parent relationship. Okay, this constructor, before even calling this constructor, this get executed, this will be called. It will be always from the parent to child. Okay, if you are not using extends keyword, both classes are independent now. Right, you are not using any kind of extends keyword. Now don't you think that both classes are now completely independent? Right, now what is the output? Who is going to answer this? Let me see. I'm not doing any extends keyword. Okay, if I run this, what is the output now? There is no extends keyword. Good. Do you agree with Chaitanya? So we are calling only test. Okay, let me see. We are calling only test. We are creating object only for the test class. This test class is completely independent. It is not making any kind of relationship. Of course, there will be a relationship with what? Object class. Okay, even object class has nothing to do with the execution, because object class has no constructors, and it has constructor but no instance blocks. Okay, definitely. Okay, before even executing this constructor, this block will be executed, then the constructor will be executed. That's why the output is instance test beacon. Okay, let me run this. Sorry. Okay, the instance test beacon. Now you see another modification that I can do. If I do the object for a obj equal to new a, now what is the output? Now I am creating an object for class a. Just remember, a constructor has to be called. This is an independent class. Of course, it will extend object. You don't need to worry about the object class. It is an independent. Don't you think that the output is before even executing this constructor, instance A will be executed, instant block will be executed, then the constructor will be called. You can remember, you can think like this. Do you agree with me? Yes. Good. Do you agree with Chaitanya? Are you getting the Samyukta, Darshini, and Jyoti? Yes. Krishna Prasad, Ratna Kumar, everyone. No need to keep any confusion, right? So if I am not creating any object, what is the output now? If you are not creating any object, what output we can expect now? Now what is the output? think, is there any instructions inside the main method? There is no instruction inside the main method. Okay, only when you create an object, okay, these instance blocks and constructors can be called. If you are not creating any object, the output is going to be empty. Don't you think so? Empty. Agree? Yes, no? Blank. Good. Output is empty. As simple as that. Right? Now, let's see if you are able to answer this question. Okay, I am making two instance blocks, instance A1 and instance A2. Right? Now I am creating a constructor for a obj equal to new a. Can you guess the output now? Okay, inside the class A, I have wanted to place two instance blocks. Two instance blocks I have placed. If I run this code, what will out? Just always keep one thing in mind. You are calling you are doing the object creation. Okay, you are using the new keyword and you are calling a constructor. Okay, of course, this blah things will happen inside behind the scenes. These things are happening behind the scenes. Okay, but by looking at the code, you can also guess. How can you guess? Yes, Sarah said that constructor needs to be executed. The respective constructor will get executed, but before executing this respective constructor, instance blocks, if there are any instance blocks that will be executed, then the constructor will be executed. So answer should be what? Instance A1, instance A2, A-con. Do you agree with me? Do you agree with me now, everyone? Only Chaitanya is answering. You're not carrying pen. Are you people not carrying pen and paper next to you? Yeah. Keep pen and paper next to you. You need to use pen and paper. Cannot depend upon the imagination. Okay. Let me run this. If I am correct or if I am wrong. Always we need to Okay, look at the order. The order is what? From top to bottom, right? Order will not change. Okay. Look at the order of these two blocks. First, this block will execute. Second, this block will be executed. Right? So we are good with the instance blocks with respect to inheritance. Okay, now we will understand about instance variables. Now you see, guys. Now see, these things will make more sense now. Okay. So we have been doing so many things before. Okay, for example, string name, string location, okay, and integer id. Okay. Tell me, guys, how many variables do I have now? How many variables do I have? Come on, tell me. How many instance? Three instance variables I have, right? Three instance variables I have. I have one constructor. Okay. Now what did I just say? Go to the definition. Go back to our definition. Okay, definition stage. We have understood about instance blocks. Instance variables also recognized and executed just before executing the respective class constructor. Okay, what does it really mean? Instance variable. We are talking about instance variables, right? So I have defined this. Okay, sorry. Okay, this is what my declaration. Name declared, location declared, ID declared, right? Now to access these variables has no values. Agree? To access these instance variables, object creation is mandatory. Right? Okay. Can you guess the output now? Obj dot name, obj dot location, and obj dot ID. Is there anyone who can give me the right answer if I try to execute this code? I have taken three instance variables, right? Is there anyone who can help me with the answer? I want to print. Okay, I have created an object. I am trying to access the respective variable names by using this object reference. What is the output? Can anyone? Anyone? Default values will be printed. Good. The output is what? Null, null, 0. If I am not wrong. Good, Chaitanya. Good, Ratna. Okay. Null, null, 0. Definitely. Yeah, default values. Rather, it's a default values. You will come across this topic when you complete the constructors. Okay. Default values. Right. So, do you ever wondered why default values are printing? Why it is happening? We are not assigning any values. We are not assigning any values, but how the system, how the JVM is printing us, giving us the default values. Haven't you got this kind of question? What is the necessity? Why it has to print default values? So why this null null zero? Why it is getting printed? Okay, now let me trace this part. Okay, focus here. Very very important. By this we can conclude about what instance context with respect to inheritance. Okay, now let me copy this. Okay, I need to do what? 1 minute, guys. Let me connect to the charger. Okay, so okay, let me use this space. Let me copy this. I will keep this program very simple. Same thing we are going to do. We are not going to perform any additional things. Okay, these are the instance variables. We have three instance variables, right? Okay, and this part needs what? Compilation, right? Of course, it's up to you. You can add these things, extends object, okay? And every constructor is going to get super keyword first line. Compiler is going to do this kind of things. Right? Compiler wants to, it will without your permission it will do all this. That is how the compiler is what tuned to do. Okay, compiler. Okay, the typical command for the compilation is what? Java C space test.java. Okay, as soon as this command is given, okay, this test.java file, okay, this file has been saved as test.java. Okay, and this will be compiled. Okay, at the time of compilation, it will ensure that, okay, this missing things are added. One is this thing, second one is this thing, right? Then the compiler is going to generate what? The dot class files. Okay? This flow will never change. This flow is always same. Okay, so what is the dot class file that it is going to generate? Test dot class file conversion. Okay, now JVM will come into the picture. JVM will not come into the picture. JVM needs to get activated. Okay, for the activating the JVM, we need a command java space test. Java space test. Right. The moment you give this command, this test.class file will be loaded. Before loading this, of course, it is extending to object class. Object.class file will be loaded from the library. I don't think I need to repeat these things once again. Object.class file. Then the test.class file will be loaded. Then what? Test.class file will be loaded. Right. At the time of loading, if there is any static context, it will be recognized and executed. Of course, we do not have any static context. Right. So far things are good. Okay, then it will create the main thread. Okay, this main thread it will try to execute all the instructions inside the main method. Focus here, guys. Okay, the main thread will try to execute all the instructions in the main method. Okay, it will access the first instruction, test obj equal to new test. Super, so good. It's so far good. Okay, obj means an object will be created in which area? In the heap area. Okay, some area is there inside. That area is called as heap area. Okay, let me maximize this. Okay, this is what? I'm sorry, guys. I'm bad at paint screen. Okay, this is the heap area. I'm just maximizing it, okay, for our imagination, right? Inside the heap area, okay, because of the new keyword, what happens? Object is created, yes or no? Right? Object is created. Obj is created. What is it? Obj, right? And this is going to do what? It will try to identify obj is of what type. I have a dot. Obj is of what type? Obj is of what? Test class type, right? So it is responsible to allocate the memories for all the instance variables inside the test.class file. Okay, this has to be loaded inside, right? So in order to do that, let me also maximize this object, okay, for the better visibility. This is the object, okay, and I'm just maximizing it for the better visibility. Okay, and this is going to have what? All the instance variables. How many instance variables are there? Name, location, and ID. Name, location, ID. Okay, so far good. So far good. Next thing, what will happen now? The test. So now till here we are done with this. Till here, this many things has happened. Next thing, what will happen? This test class constructor will get executed. Okay, of course, this needs to get executed. Before executing this, it will recognize and execute all the instance variables. How many instance variables are there? 3 instance variables. It has to execute these 3 variables. Execution is something like, okay, allocating the value. If there are values, allocate the real values. If there are no values, allocate the default values. Okay, constructor will allocate the default values. If you are not assigning any values, constructor will take responsibility. Oh, poor guy has missed to assign some values, let me assign it. What kind of values it will assign with respect to the data type? What data type is the first variable name? String data type. So string, the default value is null. Location, the default value is null. ID, integer, the default value is what? Sorry, default value is 0. These values will be what? Assigned by the constructor. Then what? Then what happens? Then the respective class constructor has to get executed. That's why we got beacon. Then the constructor will get executed. What is the constructor? Beacon. One first instruction is beacon. That's why beacon has been displayed in the console. Okay. Next thing. Okay. This part is completed. The next line is what? we are trying to print something in the console. What we are trying to print? We are trying to use reference variable obj.name. Okay, what is the value inside the name? Null. Okay, null will be printed. Second, obj location, null will be printed. Obj id, 0 will be printed. Right? That's why the output is what? Beacon. Okay, null, right? And what's I'm sorry, again null and 0. Right? By this, can I conclude that before executing the constructor, these instance variables will be recognized and executed. Okay, constructor is doing all these things for you. You're not assigning any values. If you just stop with the declaration, it thinks, okay, let me assign the values like default values null and 0. Okay, then the constructor will get executed. Okay, then before executing the constructor, this is given first priority. Instance variables are recognized and executed. That's why we are able to print the default values. We are not getting any errors. Then constructor will be executed. Right? Constructor will always take care of two things. If there is any static block, execute that first. Then let me execute my block, which is constructor. If there is any instance variables, execute that first, recognize that first, then you will execute the constructor. Right? So these things are happening behind the scenes, and the first instruction says the constructor is beacon. Then we are trying to manually access the respective variables obj.name, obj.location, obj.id. Full confusion, isn't it, everyone? Yes, no. We're getting this. Others, Jyoti, yes, Naidu Sagar, Darshini, Krishna Prasad, Chaitanya, good Chaitanya, I got answer from you. Samyukta, are you getting this? Any confusion here? So no means no confusion, right? Or your answer should be yes. You don't have any confusion. Okay, my question is, do you have any confusion? Because I am confused with your answers, sorry. Yes, no. Okay, good, Darshini. What about others? Good, Chaitanya. Okay, now I am happy that you are not having any confusion, because after saying all this, if you say still you are confused, then I cannot repeat it once again. Samyukta says a bit confused. Samyukta, repeat it once again. Definitely your confusion will be clear. Take pen and paper and try to repeat the try to repeat my video. Definitely your confusion will be clear. Trust me, it is not easy to get this topic in the first attempt. Okay, lot of practice is required. Lot of practice in the sense, programmatically you need to type, okay, and you need to do the tracing but by using pen and paper. Don't ever feel down if you're not getting this. Okay, try to put efforts from your side. Definitely, trust me, you will get this. These are the internal things. You will not find this kind of explanation anywhere. Of course, confusion is always there, will always be there. Trust me, even I am confused when I am learning Java for the first time. Right? Now, I think these instance blocks and instance variables are recognized and executed just before executing the respective class constructor. Let me draft one more program so that we can conclude this class. Okay. Now, I want to take a big program now. Okay, let me remove all this. Okay, this is removed on test class constructor. Okay, let me take two classes for the time being. Class A, class test. Okay, let me take a class constructor. Okay, and in this A class constructor, I am having a statement system.out.println a con. This is b con. Okay, I am taking a static block inside this A class constructor. Okay, let me take it as a static. Try to rejoin. Okay, you are lost. I am lost. Okay. Sorry guys. 1 hour has been completed. Okay, so these things happen. Okay, confirm if it is visible my screen and my voice. Okay, thank you, Chaitanya. See, now I was drafting a program. My program as there is a class A, one instance block is there. a instance, I can say, right? Not static. Okay, a instance, and I have class a constructor, right? And I am taking an instance variable in integer a equal to method one m1. I'm taking a method void m1. Okay, and this method is going to have a statement like m1 method, right? This method is returning some value and don't get afraid with this program, very easy, right? Let me take this as int m1. Okay, nothing. I have taken in a class, in one class I have taken all the possible context. So what are the possible contexts? This is instance block. I have taken an instance variable. Okay, this instance variable has not a direct value is not assigned to this instance variable. Instead of that, so a method is getting executed, this method is returning. So we will understand if the instance variables are recognized executed before executing the constructor. That's my intention, right? And I have taken a constructor, right? And test class extending to class A. Okay, now inside this again I am taking all these three things. Okay, this is B instance. Let me take the method as m2 m2 method 1000 1000. Okay, see guys, nothing needs to be, I think it is visible. Okay, now you see I have a class A and I have a class test. I have two classes. Okay, in each and every class, okay, these two classes are in a relationship. Test is extending to A, means test is a child class and A is a parent class. Inside every class I have taken instance block, instance variable and instance method and a constructor, right? And again I repeated instance block, instance variable, right? Instance method, and I have a constructor. If I execute this code, just remember one thing: you don't want to do the tracing every time. Okay, you do the tracing for one or two times, then you can recognize this. You are calling test class constructor. Okay, control will come here. Before even executing this constructor, okay, it has to go to the superclass constructor, right? So by using extends A, we will try to execute superclass constructor. Just before executing the superclass constructor, it will check if there is any instance block or instance variables. There is an instance block and there is an instance variable. These two things will get executed, then the constructor will get executed, and again these two things will get executed first, then the constructor will be executed. Having said this, we run this code. We get output A instance m1 method A con, B instance m2 method B con. Okay, when I say m2 method, it's not actually m2 method, it is the variable. I will tell you what is it. Okay, this is our code. Okay, I do not want to keep it any complication here. Okay, let me save this. I will send you this PNG file for you. Okay, instance context inheritance. Okay, now let me do what new. Okay, see guys, very simple. So let us go by the theory. Okay, we do not want to do any kind of tracing now. I will keep this very simple. Okay, I have class, I have one class is this, and there is another class which is called as what? The test class. So two classes are there. Okay, just keep one thing in mind. So the object is created for test class, right? Okay, and we are called this test class. Something will happen behind the scenes. Forget about everything. Test class constructor is getting called. Okay, this is the call. But this test class is having a relationship with class A. Okay, the control will jump to A constructor, right? Before even executing this block, just focus something here, very important. Before even executing this constructor, what is it? Before or even execute this constructor, it will try to identify if there is any instance block or instance variable. Don't you think that there is one instance block and there is one instance variable? This will get executed first. What is happening? First, this will get executed. Second, this will get executed. Third, constructor will be executed. Then it will come back to the child class, right? And again, it will recognize before executing this respective constructor. Okay. This has to get executed. Instance, what is it? Instance block. Yes or no? Instance variable. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's trace this order. What is the one? One is trying to do what? A instance will be printed. What is the 2? It should be recognized and executed, which means this A as a value, not a direct value. Okay, it is depending upon a method execution. Okay, this method will be executed because M1 method is getting called. This method is getting called. While calling this method, there is an instruction which says M1 method. Right, M1 method will be displayed in the console. Right, second part is done. Okay, third one, acon will be displayed in the console. Right, what is the fourth one? Fourth one, B instance. What is the fifth one? Fifth one is this variable needs to get executed, but not a direct value. We are assigning not a direct value. We are doing a method call. This method 2 will be called. While calling this method, I have wantedly placed a statement to check whether this method is getting executed or not. So M2 method will be displayed in the console. Okay, then the test class constructor bcon. Right, this is the order. Don't you think that we have the same order? See, this is what we got. Same, no? Matching, right? Conclusion is very simple. My theory is matching with my program. Instance blocks and instance variables are recognized just before executing a class constructor. We want to keep this in mind. If you want to keep this in mind forever, just execute this from your end. Definitely this concept will never be taken from your mind. Okay, try to do the execution. Okay, and that's it. We are done with this topic, guys. Instance concept in Java. Okay, only 2 more things are remaining. Super keyword and this keyword. I promised you beginning. I will explain you each and everything in a in-depth manner. Right? After completing this polymorphism and abstraction, so that we can complete roots. Okay, that's all from my side for